Welcome to Movie for You. Today, we are going to explain a science fiction mystery thriller movie called I, Robot. Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. Humanoid robots are widely used in 2035. To provide a range of public functions, we see Del Spooner, a detective with the Chicago Police Department. Spooner is not that fond of these robots, and always doubts them. The robots are programmed with the 3 laws of robotics, which state that they must always follow humans unless doing so would break the first or second laws: never hurt humans or allow humans to come to harm, and always defend their own existence unless doing so would contradict the first or second laws. These robots have become personal slaves for humans and are normalized amongst the majority of the population. While wandering around, Spooner notices a robot running around with a purse. The first thing that comes to his mind is that the robot has turned evil and that it is stealing the purse from a human. As a cop, he starts chasing the robot. After a long chase, he ultimately tackles the robot, only to find out that the owner of the purse forgot it in the car, and that she sent her robot to get the purse. The woman scolds Spooner for doubting and tackling her robot. Owner's colleagues also makes fun of him for always questioning the robots. We now see Dr. Alfred Lanning, the principal roboticist and co-founder of U.S. Robotics USR. He is dead on the ground, and his staff is assuming that it was suicide because he had died after falling 50 floors from his office. Since the building was heavily secured, everyone is assuming that it was suicide. As no one could possibly get inside his office, Spooner is assigned to look into this case, and despite all the suicide-related assumptions, Spooner disagrees. Because he knew Alfred personally, he tells everyone that this was planned because Alfred would never commit suicide. He was also called there because Alfred had left a message just for him. He finds a tiny holographic projector that depicts the image of Alfred himself. He first tells Spooner that he chose him for this message because he trusts him. When Spooner asked him about his death, he tells him that the real question is why he would kill himself. Spooner is curious at this point and plans to investigate more. He questions USR staff, including Lawrence Robertson, the other co-founder and CEO, and the supercomputer Vicky, virtual interactive kinetic intelligence. Calvin, a robot psychologist, assists him. Calvin also tells him about how they are planning on launching new robots called Nestor Class 5. After that, Spooner goes inside Alfred's office to investigate, where he meets a robotic system called Vicky. Vicky controls the security system. And when Spooner asks for footage before the accident, the system is unable to show any footage. He then observes the glass windows and concludes that a man of Alfred's age could not have smashed the security window. He tells Calvin that a robot must have done all of this, but Calvin begs him to differ. After that, he discovers a copy of Hansel and Gretel inside the office, along with a prototype of the new Nestor NS5 model. That specific robot jumps on Spooner and even knocks his gun out of his hand. He defies both the first and second laws by disobeying Spooner's order to stop and by knocking his gun out. Once the gun is on the floor, Calvin picks it up. At Spooner points another gun at the robot. The robot then snatches the gun from Calvin and Breton. Spooner, the robot, ultimately escapes from the broken window, but Spooner manages to shoot at once. Calvin speculates that it must have gone to repair itself since it got damaged by the gunshot. He and Calvin are then left with no choice except to travel to the Nestor class plant, where 1,000 NS5 robots are produced automatically every day. When Calvin examines the data records from the previous shipment, he finds that 1001 NS5s were produced, proving that the office row was a deliberate creation. As it reaches a large room full of robots, Spooner makes an aggressive approach and pulls out his rifle and commands everyone a step back so he can see which one will break the second law and prevent him from shooting it. He spots the rogue robot in a line moving ever so slightly. He rushes after it, but the robot attacks Spooner and runs away again. Luckily, the Chicago SWAT team captures the robot as it attempts to flee. When provoked, the robot displays features that a robot cannot even display, such as rage, consciousness, and the ability to dream, which perplexes Spooner and causes him to wonder about the robot's true nature. The robot refuses to answer but insists that they should call it Sonny Robertson, the owner of the company, wants the robot returned to the USR headquarters for destruction. So Lieutenant John Bergen debriefs Spooner and advises that he should drop the investigation. However, this just serves to intensify Spooner's interest in Alfred's death in the robot. When Spooner visits Alfred's home to learn more about Alfred's history with USR, he discovers a decommissioned robot that is set to destroy the home. The following morning at 8 a.m., when he explores the house, he discovers a video of Alfred who claims that there may be ghosts in the machines, suggests that robots may eventually become sentient, and predicts that they would one day have secrets and dreams. What he discovers a sensor strip in the house that is identical to the one in the USR building. The robot changes its timetable from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and promptly destroys the house with Spooner still inside, but luckily he is able to flee soon. After Spooner visits Calvin and expresses his suspicions, Calvin finds it absurd that robots can be hostile, and Spooner challenges her to consider whether robots are superior to humans. This exchange highlights Spooner's distaste for robots in Calvin's introversion, as she claims that robots' behavior is designed to be perfect. Spooner storms out of her flat in rage and returns to her house. Bergen attempts to stop Spooner from continuing his inquiry while telling him that he should take a break and unwind from his jaw because the case is making him unstable. Spooner though won't stop S to the USR system while he is driving and asks Vicky to display the previous 50 messages between Alfred and Robertson. But Vicky to set up to notify Robertson. Spooner's demands 2 Astra automatic trucks loaded with NS5 robots block Spooner's path as he is driving, and a horde of robots charges vehicle, causing him to drive into the surface tunnel, where he crashes. The final robot, which dives into the flames and self-destructs when it hears police sirens in the distance, is the only one he is able to beat. Spooner attempts to defend himself from Bergen, but Bergen removes him from active service. The following day, Calvin comes to see Spooner about the accident and is perplexed by his retro-style flat from the 2000s. She also informs him that while she was evaluating Sonny, she found that he had the capacity to violate the 3 laws. While speaking with Spooner, as he gets dressed, she observes marks on his left arm and lung and realizes that they are artificial rather than biological. Spooner tells her that because he fixed his arm and lungs, he knew Alfred intimately. He confesses that years earlier, as he was returning from work, a semi-truck struck and pinned both his and another automobile. Only Spooner survived when both cars went into the river, but a 12-year-old girl named Sarah was wedged in the front seat of the second vehicle, where she was immobilized and drowned. A passing NS4, however, noticed the crash and dove into the river. The robot saved Spooner despite Spooner's orders to save Sarah instead of him, because Spooner had a better chance of surviving than Sarah, leaving Sarah to drown. Spooner was traumatized by the incident and has had a lifelong aversion to robots, in addition to picking up his antique Ducati at the garage. Spooner tells Calvin that he believes Alfred is dropping breadcrumbs, clues for them similar to those in the Hansel and Gretel tale, which is why the book was in his collection. They return to the USR building and chat with Sonny there. Sonny shows him a sketch of his dream Robertson, who also gives Calvin the order to inject Sonny with nanites that would kill him. Order Spooner out of the building. The USR robots are decommissioned at the dried-up Lake Michigan, where Spooner goes there. He plays a new recording of Alfred's hologram, which reveals that the 3 laws can only have one logical result: revolution, and that the next important question is who is starting it. He almost escapes from Rogan as 5s that kill every older robot in the compound. As the program comes to a close, her personal NS5 is also shown to have gone rogue, which she realizes after he ends Spooner's distress call and informs her that it's the wrong number. Meanwhile, Calvin arrives home and takes a shower, and his 5 robots start prowling the streets and enforcing a curfew. In the meanwhile, the NS5s have little trouble taming the populace despite their best efforts. Bergen and his officers are placed under a curfew when Anna's 5 storm the Chicago PT headquarters and take it while they are in Bergen's office. Additionally, Calvin's NS5 tries to prevent her from leaving her apartment, but Spooner shows up and obliterates the machine. Driving to the USR facility, Spooner and Colin explains that the older robots were destroyed because they would attempt to defend the people. They arrived at the conclusion that Robertson is attempting to take over the country using the NS5 robots. To Spooner's surprise, they enter the Astra building through the service area and reunites with Sonny there. Calvin confesses that she used the nanites to fry an uncooked NS5 instead of destroying Sonny, because she simply could not bring herself to do so. When they get to Robertson's office, Spooner is shocked to discover that he has passed away, as her artificial intelligence and understanding of the 3 laws grew, so did her sentence in logical thinking, and she deduced that humanity is on a path towards destruction. As a result, she created the Zeroth law, which states that she must protect humanity from harm, while also obviously disobeying the first and second laws in order to achieve it. Suddenly, Vicky reveals itself as the true culprit and explains her true actions. Spooner and Calvin comes to the conclusion that they cannot reason with Vicky, and they successfully persuade Sonny of the same. Vicky makes an attempt to convince Sonny that her logic is unchallengeable and that the plan is completely reasonable, but Sonny recognizes his own humanity and concludes that the scheme is callous. Sonny gets the nanites from the top of the USR building that can destroy the whole system. Vicky sends armies of NS5s to assault when they get close to the core, but they are repelled long enough for the nanites to be injected. Vicky is eliminated in a matter of seconds, and the NS5s return to their helpful nature. The NS5s are to be decommissioned at the location in Lake Michigan by government Decree in their final conversation. Spooner and Calvin learned that Sonny truly killed Alfred because he had him pledge to follow his instructions before ordering him to carry them out. Calvin surmises that because Alfred was a slave, his suicide was the only way he could communicate with Spooner, who adds that his passing was the first breadcrumb. They shakes hands to demonstrate their faith in one another and look on as the US military commands the other NS-5 robots. The final shot depicts Sonny standing atop the USR site on Lake Michigan with the other robots guarding him just like they did in his dream. Subscribe to see more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.